I'm Terry Sacka, and this is Rigged Against You. This will probably be the last podcast for the year unless there's an emergency. I'll put one out, but I do like to take a little time and just spend with family and kind of recalibrate and download, which I hope many of you do. But I'm going to leave you this one here, which is be careful. And this is the end of the year truth. And I'm going to show you charts and data of what really is going on right now in our economy, what they're not telling you, what they've been hiding from you, and I'll do my best to explain the charts. But I think you'll enjoy this because it's the data. And that's one thing about the mainstream they're not giving you is the truth. And so let me get in and start with this quote here. And this is from Ray Dalio, major money guy. He says, I want to steer away from debt assets like bonds and debt and have some hard money like gold and Bitcoin. If you put a gun to my head and you said I can only have one, I would choose gold. He gets it. He knows if you talk to the power elites in finance worldwide, you will see many of them are positioning to gold, and you're not going to go wrong. Even from here, you're going to be so stabilized with the inflation and what is coming because it is still really high. And even if Trump and the team of Doge were to succeed, it will take time to get that to happen as far as breaking down the government and bringing us energy independent to bring the inflation down. But I truly believe if anyone can, it will be this team. But we got a really nasty house up there to clean out, and they're right in the middle of a major situation globally. Now, to put it this way, if you just want to go back the last 15 years, just the Fed vice chair and chair alone has increased $6.8 trillion in debt. The Treasury Secretary has added another $8.4 trillion in debt. And that's where we are today. Do not underestimate the importance of $1 trillion in debt. $1 trillion is so much money, and they have added trillions. We are printing $1 trillion every 3 months. There's so much they're just not telling you is why Rigged Against You is so important to pay attention to. Look at this staggering chart from Trump's first year to Biden. Unbelievable stuff. Trump had, when you talk about inflation and so forth and purchasing power, look at how nice and low it was under Trump. And then soon as Biden took over, look at the amount of printing. And honestly, I don't even know where most of that money went. And the Inflation Reduction Act, he even admits, was a Green New Deal agenda, a progressive New Deal agenda. Look at the staggering amount of increase of inflation. That blue area is all Biden-Harris timeframe. That's why we're experiencing so much inflation and why it's going to continue, because they went berserk in the government and they're not telling you. This is a big deal. Jobs. They keep trying to talk about jobs and trying to say how everything's okay, but it's just not. Not only over the last few years have no jobs really been created for Americans, they were all foreigners. The job numbers are completely rigged. Look at the blue line on the right that is circled in the red. That is U.S. initial jobless claims. Look at the spike that has taken place just here in the last month. Huge unemployment taking place right now. And when I say Trump's walking into a hornet's nest, it is an understatement. They're not telling us the level of trouble that the American economy is in. Look at this one. This is what Biden did. He printed so much money before the election to try to make it look like everything was okay to keep the stock market up. But look at how much was added right there in the year 2024. $624 billion deficit for October and November alone. The worst start to a year on record. You go back all of these years, we've never had a year in this much deficit from the beginning of the year. And unfortunately, there's nothing we can do to slow that down. That's why you're seeing high prices at the grocery store and why we're going to continue to see inflation. This is a matrix of M2, the money supply. The red line is the most important one. You see the red arrow? Look at where we are. They started to try, you see the red line, how it came down. It's because they were trying to pull money out of the economy because they had printed too much. Unfortunately, they had to stop doing that. Well, good thing, because it probably would have forced a Great Depression. But look at the staggering increase of currency into the system. This is a bigger deal than you think, because this is what creates inflation. And then you talk about inflation headache for the Federal Reserve. It's the acyclical that's interesting, and that's the gold line. They keep trying to show us. Now, mind you, these inflation numbers are not real. They're not going back to the 1980s matrix when we were actually honest. But look at there on the right with the little red circle. Acyclical inflation is rising again. And I'm here to tell you it's going to continue to rise rapidly because of what's going on globally. This is the interest expense and defense spending. And the reason I want to show this one, I'll make this one a little bigger, is because of the green line. This is Social Security spending. And then, of course, you have the gross interest expense. So the green line is Social Security. Look at how high it is rising, up to $1.4 trillion and rising. The main reason Social Security is rising like that is because inflation to provide the services. And the red line, that is interest on our debt. It's now the second largest U.S. government outlay in history. This is big. Now, the important part to pay attention here is Social Security going up, and then the interest expense rising way above defense and way above other areas like health spending in our health category. The reason it's important is all of this money printing is making these services more expensive because the dollar's not worth what it used to be. And the fact that red line is going up so fast, that is just interest on our debt. Pretty soon, interest on our debt will be the biggest outlay the government pays. And this is a really big deal because we are going at the ways of Rome. If you study history, we are now interest on our debt focused. Interest on the debt, not paying the debt, but interest on the debt are going to be our biggest expenditure. Where will we get the money for other things like Medicare, Medicaid, defense, Social Security, and all of the other programs? You see, this is how the world knows that the U.S. is in trouble. In my last podcast, I showed about U.S. Treasuries, how they were dumping them, how they're not accepting U.S. Treasuries at the ports anymore. We used to pay for finished goods at the ports with U.S. Treasuries because Treasuries, cash, gold, they were kind of equivalent. We called them fungible, where they could all be kind of interchanged. They don't want U.S. Treasuries anymore. You see the interest on our debt rising. They know our treasuries and bonds are becoming very problematic. They don't want to hold them. They are now demanding hard asset receipts. This is a huge situation because hard assets are things like commodities. Why we're going into a commodity super cycle and why we need to make focused changes to our portfolio and stop thinking everything is just normal. It's not. So many people are in a stock market. You are going to be so disappointed by having the majority of your assets in stocks and bonds. You're just going to be disappointed. You're going to regret that decision. You need to understand now is the time to make changes into a commodity supercycle world. Silver is going to drastically outperform. That's a whole nother conversation, but the world knows this. And let me go here because this is the real inflation number. I say this a lot, And now this only goes to May of 2023. We were at 12%, the blue line. This is in 1980 when we were measuring inflation honestly. If we do that today, this is the inflation number, around 12%. Now, over the last year and a half, it's increased dramatically. We don't have that chart yet, but when we get the new one, you're going to see that blue line going up. It's fair to say inflation is going to be between 12 and 15% because the amount of currency they're printing on a monthly basis. Big deal. Now, why this is different than what we're used to is back in the day when the CPI was the Consumer Price Index, they would take all products, put it into a measurement, and then say, here's the inflation rate. That was the 1980s matrix. That's what you just saw. It was Robert Rubin with Bill Clinton who came up with this idea. Hey, let's cherry pick products into the CPI. Let's pull out things that are going up in price, put things in that are flatlined or going down in price, and make inflation look a lot better. They've been doing it since then. Now, right now, they're telling you what inflation is 3, maybe 4%. It's totally rigged. It's not true. Now, the reason they have to do that, in all fairness, the government can't afford to tell us what the real inflation rate is. If they did, they couldn't afford the government pension increases. They couldn't afford COLA, which is cost of living adjustments for Social Security payments. We couldn't afford it. So they have to rig the inflation number so they don't have to pay out more because we just frankly don't have it to pay. Big deal. This is the real data facing us right now. We are printing and we can't stop. It has to continue. And Trump's walking into a firestorm. And watch out, because not only is there potential for that stock market to completely collapse out, you have, I just don't trust him for nothing, a potential pandemic coming around the corner. Something is coming. There's a reason conveniently Syria collapsed. And that's a whole nother conversation. But I would watch out that that is not a trap set by the East. So much is going on. If you knew what really was happening around the dollar, around the world ditching the dollar and de-dollarizing, you would not be all in on the stock market. You would take gold and silver a lot more serious, and you will see what I'm talking about over the next 12 to 24 months as all of this evolves. Now, the good news to end the year here, Trump wants to make us crypto capital of the world. If he pulls that off, passes regulation, there is going to be unbelievable opportunity to make wealth in crypto. Take those profits out and go into tangible assets like land or rental properties, gold and silver. Get into the commodity space because what is coming will be very difficult. Trump is going to be a very tough president, but at the end of the day, the world isn't playing along. You're going to be quite surprised how this plays out because he's not going to get his way as easy as we think. But if there's anyone that can do it right now, if we did not elect him, we were going into a full-blown socialist state. We were going to be done, as we know. You want to talk about Bolsheviks taking over, it would have happened. We saved the country for today, but there is a lot of work that needs to be done. So as we enjoy ourselves through this new year, have a wonderful time with family and friends. God bless you. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. But know that proper preparation is in order because you can either have tremendous prosperity and opportunity through 2025, or you're going to look back one day and go, why didn't I ever do it? So until next time, until next year, unless something comes up, if something big happens, I'll lay out a podcast. But until then, I'll see you after New Year.
With all of the recent changes in the political and financial markets, there has never been a better time than right now to invest in silver and gold. When governments simply print billions of dollars in paper money in hopes of solving financial shortfalls, you know that it is time to buy and hold assets of true and lasting value. Free information is available to you right now by calling 888-747-3309. Whether you are a new investor or you're interested in preserving the value of your retirement accounts, we make it easy for you to make smart decisions for your financial future. The specialists at Cornerstone are here to serve you, work to satisfy your retirement goals, and communicate with respect. Call us right now at 888-747-3309. That's 888-747-3309. Or visit us online at cornerstoneassetmetals.com. That's cornerstoneassetmetals.com.